Peter Paul van Hoeken was a successful banker in Europe before he became an entrepreneur. Moving to Canada in 2010, he worked with many small companies to help raise capital. This ultimately led him to found FrontFundr, an online investment platform that links investors with businesses. He's here today to tell us his story and to talk about a revolution in how companies raise capital. Welcome to Biz One-on-One, Peter Paul.
Thank you, Rennie. It's great to be here.
And the term is known as crowdfunding. But what you're doing with FrontFundr is so much more than crowdfunding.
Absolutely. So, and you refer to it as a revolution. We're basically using the crowdfunding principle, if you like, but we're applying it to truly investing in companies. So what we're doing with FrontFundr is that we enable companies to raise money from essentially anyone they want. So we help companies to expand the capital pool, investors they can approach. And on the other side, we help investors to invest in companies, in small companies that to date they were basically unable to invest in.
So someone watching right now can go to FrontFundr, F-U-N-D-R. Okay?
Correct. Yeah.
Check out the website, and they can sign up, and they're an investor.
Yeah.
Now the difference is anybody can invest in public companies through a broker or online investing. It's these private companies, these smaller companies, where the real action is, and actually where a lot of wealth is made. But the average investor doesn't have access to that.
Absolutely. So typically, small companies, startup companies, private companies, investors are, angel investors, venture capitalists, other investors. It's a limited group of investors that have access to those kind of companies. And so the general public basically is locked out from investing in those companies. And for them, it becomes accessible when private companies, when they grow and they go public, and then everybody can invest. And you're right, at that time, lots of the wealth and lots of the value is already created in the company. So what we're saying with FrontFundr, so no, we actually enable anyone to invest from the very beginning, basically, when these companies start, and enable investors to invest in these companies for as little as literally $100. So for $100,
wow,
you become a shareholder in this company alongside the founders.
And that's the key, is that, to give a simple example, a company that might be raising capital very early on, they've opened it up to their so-called friends and family. They might be raising capital at a valuation of like $1 million or $2 million, sometimes even less than that. By the time they get to the stage where they're ready to go public, and the public gets access to that capital, to that investment opportunity, that company is usually valued much higher, right. 20 million, 30 million. So those initial investors, if it's successful, have a big, huge upside.
Right.
Now, with upside also comes risk. Is it fair to say that a lot of the companies on FrontFundr are more risky than the companies you'd find on the TSX Venture, for example?
The companies on our platform are typically earlier stage companies. So yes, there is usually more risk associated. There's simply higher levels of uncertainty. These companies, they're still often in a phase of proving the concept. So yeah, I think it's fair to say that the younger companies are obviously higher risk. And this is also where we as FrontFundr want to take our responsibility in terms of making sure that investors understand those risks, and especially because we are basically inviting anyone to the table on our platform to invest in these companies. So we have a lot of investors that are first-time investors in private companies. So, and of course, when you see a fancy video and you see all this great stuff that these companies want to do, you want to make sure that investors are excited about that, but you also understand, like, look, there is a flip side. There is a risk associated, and before you invest and put money in, you got to realize that there are also risk associated. So education of investors, and also keeping it really as simple as possible and transparent. Those are all kind of principles that we build our platform on. So we want to really keep it as simple as possible so that everyone essentially understands what it is about.
So there's very many small private companies, startup companies that are wildly excited about this whole opportunity in the so-called crowdfunding world. And it's kind of like the Wild West in that it's new, but it's not the Wild West in the sense that you are actually a fully sanctioned, exempt market dealer and have dealt with all the securities commissions across the country and are fully compliant. Tell us a little bit about that aspect of it.
So, to get where we are today with FrontFundr, it's been a very interesting and a bumpy journey because the challenge here was to bring all the pieces together. So obviously we're gonna build a platform, so the technology. But you're right, because we're dealing with people's money, we're dealing in shares, but debt. We're dealing with securities. We're regulated. When I started this in end of 2013, I decided to seriously look at this and also having a fairly good understanding of the securities regulation in Canada and said, well, look, even within the existing regulation, we can do this. We can make this happen. We can take it online and we're interpreting the existing rules. So yeah, it's literally started with a discussion with the securities regulator. Say, hey, this is what I want to do. I want to take everything online, and I can do it, and I don't even ask you to change the rules. So that's when it started. And yes, we are operating as a so-called exempt market dealer. So we are registered. We're supervised by all the securities, provincial securities regulators across Canada, and yeah, we got to be fully compliant, and we have to meet requirements with respect to before we can't just put a company on a platform and see what happens, and we do our due diligence on this company because of securities regulations, but also we want to bring vetted companies on our platform. And on the other side, before an investor can make an investment, we need to know a bit more about you than just your name or your email. We need a bit more about your financial situation and et cetera before we actually invest. The good thing is everything is done online.
It's fantastic. It's like the Uber of investing.
I
love
totally.
it. It's so exciting for me as an angel investor myself and being involved in angel groups. You see how difficult it is for companies in the early stages to raise capital, particularly in Canada, compared to, for example, in Silicon Valley or in Europe. So it's wildly exciting to me. How's it been going? You've only been in business for like a year, right?
So we've launched our platform just over about 18 months ago. We're getting great traction. We closed 10 deals to date. We raised over $5 million from over 2,000 investors. And just to give you an idea, minimum investment on our platform, $100.
Wow.
And you become a shareholder alongside the founder. Exactly the same investment, same security. But we also attracted investments of over $100,000, and they're all in the same boat. So that's inclusivity, right? That's really opening it up. That's why we like to talk about our platform is we are democratizing investing in private companies.
Give me some examples. Give me one example of one of the exciting raises that's happening and the kind of investors that you're attracting. People who've maybe never invested privately before. How would they? How would they ever find out about an opportunity to invest in for example, in a company out of Quebec that's getting a new bank charter?
Yeah, well, I can give you an excellent example because we actually did a raise for a company out of Quebec in the finance industry. They're basically looking to build a new bank essentially. But they're saying, look, this is going to be a bank that is 100% dedicated to impact investing. And so that means that you as
what do you mean impact investing?
Impact investing, so sustainable investing in companies that have a sustainability impact, either environmental or progressing, economically supporting the economy. So kind of investments that are really are sustainable and
also that have a social good associated with them.
Yes, social good, environmental, those. So this bank, and they've been very smart, is basically to find out like what do people want. So they literally traveled across the country and said, what do you expect from a bank? And so they create a whole following of people saying, this is what I want from my bank, both deposit players, holders as well as companies. So what do you expect? And all those people, they got them engaged. So they said, well, now we need money. So now we're going to raise capital. So why don't we approach all those people and say, hey, thank you for your input. We're going to build this bank. We want you to be part of it, and by investing in a company. So they wanted to do that. They basically want to bring it out to the public, to all their followers, and anybody else that's interested in what they're doing and want to support them. So they were looking for a platform because they want to do this across Canada. They came to FrontFundr. We put it on our platform. Minimum investment was $100, and they raised over nearly $800,000 from about 700 investors. So
And you had a bunch of new investors on your platform. They came out of Quebec, which wasn't a focus point for you.
well, to give you another good example of another deal, and this is indeed where we see some interesting trends happening, is that another deal which I'm obviously very excited about is that we put FrontFundr on FrontFundr. So we put our own company on our own platform and we raised capital for ourselves. And we
Cool.
closed that deal in December. And so now we have 200 shareholders. And we raised around $750,000. And what we see is we see investors that invested in this impact finance bank, and they also invested in FrontFundr. So we see the first, and this is exactly what we're trying to achieve here. You referred earlier on, like, angel investors. We enable smaller investors to essentially act as smaller angel investors. They can make multiple investments, but they can do it for as little as a couple of $100.
And let's just take a quick look at what this can really mean, because we all hear about tech companies, startups, Silicon Valley, and we hear about companies raising hundreds of millions of dollars when they go public with their IPO. We hear about the sale of tech companies for billions of dollars, some of them even pre-revenue. So FrontFundr itself went on its own platform. What was the valuation that you offered your shares at?
So the valuation, so you mean the valuation?
Yeah, of FrontFundr.
Yeah.
I want to use that as an example of, someone watching this program has never invested in a private company. What does it mean? I know I can go on the TSX Venture and buy a stock at a certain price and hope it's going to go up and hope things are going to happen. When I invest $100 in FrontFundr, I'm getting a percentage of the company based on, I think it's a 4 million. Roughly,
Okay, absolutely.
Yeah.
We had we raised $750,000 at a 4.1 million valuation, and we're still in the very early days, right? So we're basically saying, look, we're proven. What we've done is we closed the first couple of deals, and we say, look, we've proven the concept. Now it's time to drink our own whiskey and show that we totally believe in our own product. So we brought it online, and indeed invited everyone. And we have companies that raise through our platform. We have investors, anyone that supports what we're doing and likes to see us succeed and take this really big. We invite them to the table to invest in FrontFundr. So we have now investors for $100 that are now a shareholder in the company. They hold the same shares as I do, and the other founders. And so basically we're and we have a whole bunch of new supporters, right? We've got 200 people say, well,
exactly.
They literally have a vested interest to talk about us. Say, hey, check it out. And by the way, I own a piece of the action.
And if FrontFundr continues to be the market leader and 5 years down the road is bought out by some Canadian bank for a few $1 billion, those $100 investors are going to benefit, just like you hear these stories of people that are working for a Silicon Valley company and they get options.
Right.
That is so cool. Just before we let you go, Peter-Paul, tell us a little bit about your own story. I recognize a bit of an accent there.
Okay, so yeah, I do have I'm originally from the Netherlands, and I worked in about 8-9 years in banking in Europe, and I done a lot of exciting things in the banking industry. I was also there around the 2008 and 9 sort of excitement and turmoil, but at that time also made up my mind, said, look, I've seen it, done it, but I want to move on. I like finance, but I want to sort of roll up the sleeves and go down the entrepreneurial path. So and it coincided with moving to Canada, and that was indeed in 2010. And so basically closed the shop in the Netherlands, moved here, and started all over here. And I started working with young companies, helping them to get ready to raise capital. And so that was the time that I experienced how challenging it is for companies to raise capital, because there is indeed a very limited capital, but also that there is basically no infrastructure. Why are companies, founders running around with their investment decks across the country and trying to raise capital, which I think they should continue doing, but why don't we use technology to help that? And
Exactly.
so seeing that, sort of identify that need in the market here, combined with what is already happening, because what FrontFundr is doing is already happening in Europe. It's been around for 7-8 years, and so I looked at what's happening there and basically transferred the model, brought it to Canada essentially. And Randy, if you now look at these platforms in Europe, for example, in the UK, there are already more deals done in the early stage, more deals done through platforms like FrontFundr in the UK than through the traditional channels.
PeterPaul, we're talking about online investing, but you're obviously an experienced banker, investment banker. What can you give a company 3 quick tips on raising capital?
Absolutely. So, first of all, if you consider as a company raising capital online, you have to ask yourself, okay, why am I going to do this? So if you're only looking for capital and you ideally have it from 1 or 2 investors, there's no point really to go on the platform and open it up to everyone, because you just want to get your company funded and move on. But if you're seeing the funding as an opportunity to not only raise the capital, but also to reach out to basically to the public and create a lot of awareness around your product, your company, then it's very interesting to say, well, why don't I raise capital from those people? And at the same time, I've got a whole bunch of people who know what I'm doing, who will promote, talk about us. So you're basically raising capital and you have a great marketing exposure at the same time. So that's one. Secondly, campaigns, and this is similar to the traditional crowdfunding campaigns like going on Kickstarter. It's preparation is absolutely key. We have companies coming to say, well, let's get on. I want to get on your platform next week and raise this $1 million. So hold on, let's just first get ready, prepare, get your story really polished, start promoting it. So you already have a whole people lined up following. So when you come on our platform, you hit the ground running, and what
Momentum.
you do, momentum, and then you convert those followers into investors. And so that's the second one. It's about preparation, and obviously during the campaign, you got to go at it. It's hard work, both for us as a platform support a company, but for the company itself as well. And then thirdly, so then your campaign is closed. You got your money, champagne, it's great, but then the actual work starts, and it's about the follow-up of you got a whole bunch, like this company in Quebec, they got nearly 800 investors. So keeping those investors informed about what you're doing and keeping them excited, and so because then you can really on a continuous basis have them promote your company, right, and spread it in their networks, etc. So those are 3, I think, key tips for a company for raising capital in FrontFundr.
Well, thank you so much for being on Biz One-on-One, PeterPaul.
It was a pleasure.
And best of luck with FrontFundr.
Thanks, Randy.